some of the basic skills in surgery which are mandatory before one embarks a journey in the field of surgery. And the various aspects include theatre etiquettes, which you would like to cover at the end of covering up these basic techniques that we adopt. Then the other things, having gone through those theatre etiquettes, it can be assumed that one has gone through these theatre etiquettes routinely in his theatre postings, but in case one is clear about it, it's just to reinforce the same thoughts. But otherwise, one must learn the right way of approaching a patient in the operation theatre. Now we are going to discuss a few things, particularly the knot tying, which is going to be the core issue in most of the basic surgical skill courses. A little bit about some of the instruments that we are going to use today. I believe instruments have already been covered, so we'll just take up instruments that we are going to use today. A little bit about sutures, what are the types of sutures, how are they used, where are they used, where they should not be used, like absorbable sutures will have a particular place where you use them, non-absorbable sutures will have another place where you use them. What are their advantages, what are their disadvantages, and to wrap up the whole thing, some procedures which are done in the ward, bedside procedures like introduction of an IV cannula, maybe a venesection if possible, catheterization, putting in a Ryle's tube, taking it out, and maybe a tracheostomy or a tracheostomy care. We try to cover up these issues today. Now, we'll start with the knot tying, which is, as I mentioned, the most important part of basic skills. Now, it's very important to learn one correct way of doing anything. This by no means is the only way of doing it. What one learns during his training as a postgraduate is also correct. Not that I'm trying to suggest that this is the only way to do it, but one must learn one correct way of doing it. Like there are 100 ways to Rome, you must know one correct way of doing it. Now, before I move on to knot tying, you see, it's a fallacy, it's a wrong thing to believe that knots don't slip, and most people tend to think that they can learn knot tying by watching others. There are correct methods of tying knots, and one must learn the correct method of tying a knot. Now, this simulator actually shows this as a tissue, and this as a thread, which has a needle at this end. Now, obviously, if you're taking a bite through the tissue, the needle will go through the tissue, and we end up having the short end away from us, because that's how we normally put a suture and that's how we put a knot. Now, when we are trying to have the short end away from us, it can also mean that if you're trying to put a suture right to left, it could be the short end to your right. So in both situations, the short end is away from you or to your right. Rarely would you find a situation where the short end is towards you, because nobody likes to keep this long a thread with the needle and then tries to put a knot. The disadvantage of using this end for knotting is that you will waste a lot of thread. After, suppose I put a knot, now I have this much of thread to be cut or to be lost. So this is therefore not done. Now this is one thing I would like you to remember. One is that a short end usually ends up being either away from you or to your right. Now this is the end with the needle. I am sure it is covered in the instruments, but it's mandatory to learn that the surest and the safest part for the needle to be on is the needle holder. Now if I've taken a bite through this tissue, I would ensure that I don't leave the needle floating around, which is a very common mistake with most people. And commonly what people do is they hold the needle in their hand. Now, a word about universal precautions, which you all must have read about. These are precautions that you take or undertake, assuming that every patient is a potential HIV or hepatitis case, unless told otherwise. Now, why should you take these precautions, Elisa?
So it is because if you take, to prevent the transmission of these infections.
But why take universal precautions? Why not take it in selected cases? HIV case?
So because there is a window period during which
There may be a window period when you miss out the diagnosis of HIV, or
Not to discriminate against
and not to attach a stigma to their disease, so that you treat them with the same attention in all situations. Is that clear, Prakash? So universal precautions being a factor, there are various things you do, including putting on a headgear, putting on a visor in front of your eyes, big eyeglasses, particularly for gynecologists when they get a splash during obstetrics work, putting on a plastic apron, double gloves, gum boots. not to handle body fluids, not to handle sharp objects. Coming to the sharp object, so you can't talk about it in isolation. You can't talk about a sharp object and not talk about the rest of the things. So they are all to be taken in one stride. Now the needle is in the needle holder. That's the surest way to ensure that the needle is where I want it to be. Otherwise, what would generally happen? You hold the needle in your hand and you go wrap, 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 and finally you put the knot. This is the commonest mode of needle stick injury in surgeons. Should never be done. It's dangerous. You don't want to be dangerous to yourself and to your assistants. The other thing which is important is that when you're using a suture, the knots and the number of throws could be different. You may need more for a suture which has got a memory, that is a suture which tries to open up, to go back to its position. And a suture that has got a memory, we need to put more throws. Now coming to a knot and a throw, do they mean the same thing? They don't mean the same thing. At least 2 throws make 1 knot. Is that clear? Now you can leave it at that. I mean, don't call it 2 knots. 2 knots is the wrong terminology. 2 throws for 1 knot. You put a 3rd throw to ensure that the thread can be kept short. Otherwise, what will happen? You must have seen shopkeeper ties packages. He will just put 2 big throws, and that's the end of it as far as he is concerned. It comes out to be a reef knot. Can you zoom here, please? Here. Now this is a reef knot which you would put in all surgical situations, but how he put it is also important. He's going to lose this much of thread, plus it's not going to be tight. So in both situations it's not an advantage. So you put a single-handed knot, taking care that you put at least 2 throws and put a 3rd one to cut the ends short. So should I repeat it? 2 throws will make 1 knot, and you can leave it at that. But you'll have to leave the ends long. To be able to leave the ends short, I put a 3rd throw, so that it doesn't slip. That is why conventionally, most people put a bite, they tie 3 throws, and they call it 1 knot. Don't call them 3 knots, that's a wrong use of the word. Secondly, each time that I put a throw, I must cross my threads. If I don't cross my thread, it's a granny knot. Often called gynae knot. It is very commonly seen in gynae. Should not be put. Granny knots are basically, the term granny knot came into existence because of the granny knitting. You must have seen them put multiple throws, one after another. These are granny throws that they put. And then after that they put one secure throw to secure the knot. Now, in surgical scenario, we don't use granny knots except in situations where we want the throw to slip down. We'll practice that. That is called a slip knot. Now, having given you the background of what knotting is all about, we can now move on to knotting actually. Now, while using my hands, it's important to understand which fingers to use. We're doing hand knotting presently. We'll move on to instrument knotting after that. Now, when you're doing the hand knotting, it's important to know how to hold the thread. Where do you hold the thread? It's important. Now, when the short end is away, long end is towards you, a particular finger would be used. When the short end is towards you, another finger would be used. Right? Now, if the short end is away, basically if you're doing a single-handed knotting, I told you two-handed knotting in surgical scenario is a rare situation. You do that only if both ends are of the same length. Because otherwise, the short end is there, then you can always manipulate with one finger. If you're doing two-handed knotting, the disadvantage, as I told you, was that you'll end up having, I put the knot as to show you told you about a shopkeeper who is busy tying a knot and looking at the potential customer or a thief. So what does he do? He puts a loose knot. He doesn't have to tie a package like you tie a surgical knot. So there is a huge difference. Okay, so we don't put a two-handed knot because more often than not, we don't find the 2 threads to be of the same length. We'll find that their lengths are different. Okay. Now, if the lengths are unequal of the end away and the end towards me, then I'm going to use a single-handed knotting. And if you're doing single-handed knotting, you're going to use basically an index finger or a middle finger. Okay? You can make out that this is a shorter finger. So the short end is away, I'm going to use a shorter finger. If the long end is away, I'm going to use a longer finger. short end is away from me, index finger. Long end is away from me. This is short end away, long end away. Long end away, I'm going to use a middle finger. Or if the short end away, it's index finger, short end towards me, it's a middle finger. They mean the same thing. Now, the short end would be kept away in most situations, and I gave the reason for that in the very beginning. Because when you're putting a bite, this is the end which is going to be away from you or to your right. Now, I'll hold the thread in a classical manner. I'm going to use these two fingers, index and middle. So I should be holding thread with this. This is one common mistake. People hold it like this. If you hold it like this, what do you use for putting a knot? And you can only use their foot for it. Now, you have to hold it between the ring finger and the thumb. And these two fingers, index and middle, are kept free. Clear? Hold it in a supinated position. Because when you're knotting, you pronate. If you already pronated, how do you pronate further? So supinated hand is another important thing. Like you meditate, isn't it? That's how you hold the ring finger with the thumb. That's meditation. And keep these two fingers free. These are free for use. Now what do I do now? I use my index finger to draw this thread out like a figure of 4. Is it visible to you? Can you see this figure of 4? On the other side it look like the other way around. And then we advance our left hand to hold that section. I'm repeating. Ring finger, thumb, index finger, drawn out like a figure of 4. Hold that section. If you do not hold that section, this loop is going to be loose. It will be like this, hold that section. Now my index finger is free, middle is free. The loop is available to me. You can easily argue, why not make a rounded thing? Why do I make a 4? The advantage of making a 4, the loop becomes good, becomes big. Hold that section. And now use your index finger to fish this thread out, secure with the middle. And now release it. Take it out and cross. If you cross the throat, it's called squaring the throat. What's a squaring? Cross. 180. Now this becomes a square throat. 2 square throws make 1 square knot. Square knot is a reef knot. Reef knot is the bottom line. You should always repeat, always put a knot, which is a reef. Do not put a granny. Granny should be condemned. We'll discuss it, only to be condemned. You should not practice it. Now this, the ends have crossed now. See, the short end is away, the short end is come towards me. Clear? Now the part 2. The short end is towards me, so which finger I am going to use? What did we learn first? Index finger through. Now what are you going to do now? Middle finger through. Again, I'll hold a thread, long end. See, another thing important is the short end is the one which you manipulate around. So you always hold, if you're a right-handed individual, you'll hold the short end in your right hand. If you're a left-handed individual, you'll hold it in the left hand. But in this case, right-handed, because I'm a right-handed individual. Most surgeons are. Now, you hold this thread, the long one, exactly like you were holding before, between the ring finger and the thumb. And this one is held like a dart. You see the dart being thrown? Suppose this is the dart. You hold it like this, don't you? Can you keep maneuvering? Don't just leave it there and forget about it. You'll have to move on up and down. No? This is a dart, and you throw it like this, don't you? So my grip, this is easier to remember, that's what I'm telling you. Not that you're going to throw this thread out. It's just to remind you that you're not going to hold it in the ring and the thumb. You're going to hold it between the ring and the index finger and the thumb. And this one is held like before. Now what do I do next? I'll wrap this. This is okay? No problem? Now I'll wrap this thread around my 3 fingers. I was here. I went like this. And bring the other one right across because I have to make a loop. Keeping a distance about 3 centimeters between the 2 ends. Hold that section. Then between middle and ring, I'll hold this thread. Release it. and cross back. If you could zoom here, that's a reef knot. Clear to everybody? I'll just repeat it in slow motion. The short end is away, long end is towards me. I'm going to put an index finger throw all the way to the ring finger and the thumb, the short end and the long end. Make a figure of 4 by drawing this thread away. See, this is the step you got to remember. Draw this out like a figure of 4. Hold end section. Use index finger to fish out this thread. Secure with the middle. Take this thread out of the loop and cross. Crossing is mandatory. If you don't cross, it's not a square throw. If you cross, it's a square throw. 2 square throws make 1 square. Short end is come towards me. Once again, the long end would be held between the ring and the thumb. Here there is a little change. You can hold it like this also, but I find it easier to teach you this way. Hold it like a dot. Wrap it around your 3 fingers. Bring the other one right across. Hold end section. Use middle and ring to draw this thread through and cross. This is a reef knot. Yeah? Any questions? Now you may argue we can put it with the left hand also. Can be done. I'll just show you if you are a left-handed person or your right hand has got some problem. You can do it with the left hand also. Once again, you see, if I'm going to use my left hand, I'll hold the short end in my left hand. Because I'm going to maneuver short end. Just try to understand. It's easier to play with this end, because it's small. If I was to do this with a long end, it becomes very difficult. Each time I'll have to draw the thread out. Again I'll have to draw it out. And then when I cut it, I have to waste so much of thread. So always use the shorter end for maneuvering. Is that clear? Now, to do it with the left hand, I'm holding it in my left hand exactly like, just the opposite of what I did, between the ring and the thumb. And this in between my ring and thumb, like meditation. And I'll use the index finger to draw this thread out in the form of a mirror image of 4. This becomes a mirror image of 4. I hold that section and I'll use my index and middle to fish it out and cross. I'll hold this like a dart in my hand. Again, this one like before, no problem. This goes right across. I hold that section, cross back. Crossing makes it a square. Okay? Can we move on? Tushar, just come and show it here. Do it slowly. How do you hold that? Right? Yes. No. Yes. Crossed. Yes. Good. Hold that section. Hold that section. Yes. That's how you put a reef knot. Clear? The reef knot is the right hand. I would be very happy if you can do the right hand and knotting first, and then you practice left hand. Is that clear? Okay, now move on to the. If you look at the simulator, we've got 2 ends. One is narrow, the other one is broad. This is to accommodate. Sometimes the tissue has got a tendency to spring open, spring apart. And what do you see people often doing? They put a knot or a throw, and then they hold it with an artery forceps, so that the knot doesn't slip. Okay? Now when you're holding it with an artery forceps, you're actually holding the thread. Nowadays most threads are monofilament, like maybe I have one to show. The monofilament threads are those which have got a single filament. Now these are used for vascular surgery and for finer works. Most sutures are used today in surgery are monofilaments. You've seen monofilaments? You've seen PDS?
Yes.
Now if you hold a suture with an artery forceps, it can fracture the suture. They're so delicate. Although they're very strong. It's not necessary that a fat looking person is stronger than a thin looking person. It's got to do with the tensile strength, stretchability, flexibility. The strength is of mind more than of the body. Now, therefore, to hold the thread right where the knot is, what's the disadvantage? You're holding the thread with bare artery forceps, you're likely to cause some damage. Number one, fracture of the suture. The suture is fractured. Like bones, suture is also fractured. And the other thing is, whenever a thread crosses, remember this is a very important part of basic skills. It's covered in instruments, I'll just take it here. Usually when you cross the threads, each time that you cross a monofilament, you lose tensile strength by about 30%. You understand that? Each time that goes. Now, knot is the weakest part of the thread. I often mention, those who have flown kites, they must have seen that kites give way where the knots are. But that's the weakest part. And you're holding at the weakest part. The other thing is you're only as strong as your weakest part, isn't it? So you're likely to produce what? The knot is going to be weaker. So your thread is going to open up. This is what happens. Therefore, in areas where the tissue has a tendency to spring apart, we put what is called surgeon's knot. Surgeon's knot is not a knot which is only put by surgeons. Anybody can put it, but it has been called so because most surgeons put it. I'll always put a surgeon's knot. Most of my trainees would have put a surgeon's knot. The reason being, it's the securest of all knots. It's a knot that is likely to take care of springing action or a tissue with a memory. Now let's imagine tissue which have got a tendency to spring. Louder. Pedicles, not the right tissue. Putting the two sheets together can have some springing action, but most pedicles, that is like a uterine pedicle, splenic pedicle, renal pedicle, they tend to go off. Isn't it? And that's where we need to put surgeon's knot. We must know surgeon's knot. Now the short end is away, long end is towards me. Which finger I am going to use?